This is our first breakout session in the main stage, and we have an amazing female founders panel, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but mostly just want to let you know, that's what's happening, and keep looking at your agenda if you need it. We all know. Huge thank you to our sponsors. Hopefully you got to meet some of them. Hopefully you've taken a headshot, done a photo booth, little boomerang, had some fun with it. But now on to the good stuff. I'll let these ladies introduce themselves, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you guys. Welcome to Denver. How many people are from Colorado? Oh my goodness.
It's like most of the room.
Oh, I know. I'm like, holy cow. Well, welcome to Colorado. My name's Stephanie Hagan. I'm the CEO and founder of the CRM Firm and also of an ISV called FirmWorks. So the CRM Firm's an SI. I started the company just over 9 years ago, so next year will be our first 10 year, which is exciting. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem over 10 years, been in consulting my entire career, and Denver-based. I'm a mom of 2 squirrely children, 9 and 12, and excited to be here.
I'm Jenn Knight. I am the co-founder and CTO of AgentSync. We are an ISV partner in the Salesforce ecosystem, focusing on the insurance space. Let's see, we are going to be 6 in October, so we're a little bit behind you. Company-wise, I have a 4-year-old, so if you ever want to learn about having a baby while scaling a startup, I would be a person that would be happy to talk to you about why that's a great idea and a terrible idea all at once. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem 17 years, I think, and kind of almost every role you could imagine. And this was, now I'm running a company in it, which is great. And so super excited to be back here. Thank you for organizing and chat about founding in this space.
I'm Brittany Hart, founder and CEO of Platinum Cubed. We are an SI and an ISV in the Salesforce ecosystem. We are just over 5 years old, and I can resonate because I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, so ask me about being pregnant and deciding to launch a company and the pros and cons to that one. But we are excited. I'm based out of Phoenix, and then we have some team members here in Denver.
Hello, I am Lidian Mocko, and I work for the CRM Firm. I am here to ask some of the questions, and then as I proceed, I will engage you guys in the audience to share your own questions with them. So we would like to keep each of your responses to 3 minutes to allow adequate time for everybody. And I'm going to start with, can you share a moment of professional triumph or accomplishment that stands out in your career?
So I'll start. There's a lot. I think the day I started the CRM Firm was both triumph and sometimes I feel like stupid at the time. I had an 8-week-old baby, so all of us have we decide to have children or start a company while we're doing that. That was one, and then secondly, most recently, we had our team summit, and I had all of my lovely humans that I get to work with every day all in one place, and just looking around the room and knowing that I was able to create a safe place for them to really do great work, and it was just a satisfying moment, so.
Sure. Okay, I can go next. So I would say, as I kind of look back on accomplishments, it's actually happened in this last 2 weeks at the company. So many of you have probably experienced where your company hires over you and brings in middle management or executives, and you're sitting there going, excuse me, I've been working towards that for the last X years for you. We have been able to scale and rise those leaders up, which was a day that I didn't think was going to happen. I really thought we were going to have to take the trajectory of hiring in that next layer of management, and just seeing 2 to 3 individuals really come up and step into those leaderships is really exciting to see, and a huge accomplishment.
Okay, well now what do I do? So I actually, I think accomplishment looks a lot of different ways, and I may have shared this one last year, but I don't remember. I think a lot about a moment that I had early in my career. I worked at LinkedIn as their first Salesforce developer, and before I had joined, they had a rule in-house, this was in 2011, that they would do no custom code. So the environment that I walked into was pretty fascinating because they'd done some really, really, really interesting things. A lot of different workflows and a lot of different things. And this is a more technical one, but I was pretty young. I was joining a team with people who were much more senior than me at the time. And I got the opportunity to design a part of the system that ended up being a really key part of how we scaled, but it was not an easy thing. There was a woman that I worked with at the time who was extremely strongly opinionated that the thing that I wanted to do was wrong, and I was pretty strongly opinionated that it was right, but that doesn't matter, your opinion doesn't matter. So it was negotiating. I think about it a lot in my career of having the opportunity to really learn how to negotiate with someone for a principled approach without steamrolling, without disrespecting their opinion, getting to the other side. And sometimes this was legitimately about whether a field should be unique or not. Like, it was that small. But it actually set a lot of the foundation of what we ended up doing next and what we were able to scale on. And I think about that one a lot because sometimes we think about like, oh, founding a company or doing all these things. And for me personally, there have been a few things like that where I'm like, oh, I like got a chance to do a really hard thing, learn from it, and take that forward in my career. And so I think about that one a lot, of having the opportunity to do that early in my career.
Yeah, thank you. So my next question is, can you share a little bit about your organization in terms of the focus of what you do in the Salesforce ecosystem and the number of people you have in your organizations? I think you all alluded to it a little bit in your responses, and I think it will help the audience too as they want to come up with some questions.
I'll go first. We'll go all wacky. Okay, so AgentSync we're an ISP partner. We also sell OEM, which is a little bit interesting the way we go to market, but we are a piece of software that helps insurance agents get ready to sell in the insurance ecosystem. So I always like to say, you think about all of the paperwork that happens for us as consumers with insurance. If you're an agent who's trying to sell a property policy, so for your home, or a health policy, there is a ton of paperwork that is involved in getting that person onboarded and a bunch of regulation about what's required for that person to actually have the conversation with you. So someone is not allowed to talk to you about a product from Allstate until they have gotten a bunch of certifications done and registered with the state that they're selling that policy in, and also gone to the carrier. Sometimes had product training and been certified by that carrier, which is also reported to the state to sell that product. So we actually, our software is purely focused for agencies and insurance carriers, and also MGAs and MGUs and a bunch of things that no one has ever heard of unless you're in the insurance space, helping folks get ready to sell us all insurance policies. So super, super complicated stuff, and that's where we play in the space. We are about 210 people now. And we are primarily in Denver or the Front Range area with a few pockets all over because insurance knowledge is a bit regional in certain areas.
So we focus in the real estate and financial services space. So Stephanie and I are frenemies, just joking, because you'll hear a little bit about.
She's not joking.
We might have seen each other in a deal once or twice. And so that's where we focus. Our team is just around 20 here in the States, and then we have a larger team globally to help with delivering for our clients.
So we are frenemies, which is interesting because we're all sitting up here. So I think that'll be some of the unique things in the women's ecosystem specific to the Salesforce. We found some safe places, so I think we'll dig into that more. But we are just right around 40-ish individuals and humans. We are all US based. East Coast to West Coast, just over 15 states. I have a lot of my lovely team. We are heavy Colorado based because I'm here and have been here and started the company here. We specialize in financial services without banking. We don't really dabble in that, as well as nonprofit. We're more cloud focused, so sales, service, FSC, NPSP, nonprofit cloud, marketing cloud, and marketing cloud engagement and experience cloud. I have to think of all the clouds.
Which clouds do you not do?
There are some.
Manufacturing. We don't touch manufacturing.
We don't touch manufacturing or net zero.
Or retail.
Yeah,
Ugh.
no.
Okay, so what about our audience? Is anybody interested in asking a question? Oh yes, we have one.
Oh, Jody. I better beware.
Is she on your team?
No, but I know it's going to be hard.
So hi, thank you for sharing your stories. My name is Jody Herbeck. I'm not on the team, but I'm a fan of the team and know many of the team members. My question is actually on soft skills. And I'm curious in particular as the platform has become increasingly complex. And I think it takes a lot more time and energy than it used to way back in the day to keep people up to speed on all that is new and to continue to stay abreast of the technology. How do you think about soft skills? You know, to what extent do you invest around soft skills? So just kind of a general, exact opposite of a hard question. It's all about soft skills.
Such an easy
I'll take
question.
this one. I'm really passionate about this, and we've been doing a lot of work. So really the soft skills is a good portion in my mind of a successful consultant, and really whether you're internal or external to an organization, really navigating and understanding and extracting that information and guiding that conversation. So we invest in our team. We right now have a cohort going on of investing in those soft skills and everything from EQ to how to navigate difficult discussions and words to use and that. So we invest in our people. We invest in our organization. We just had our summit. We brought in a coach, just working through, and I think part of it is understanding yourself and your trigger points, because someone hits it and you've got to tailor that conversation to that. So we do a lot of training there, and we just keep investing. Actually, I just used ChatGPT. We were talking about this before we walked on stage. I use this a lot. I just ChatGPT'd some ideas around how to navigate difficult conversations, words to use, just thinking through it as we go through and navigate our day.
Yeah, so we don't have, we have a professional services arm, so some of the similar things with consulting, but something I think a lot about for our team as actually a critical pillar to being successful in our organization. So I run product and engineering. Insurance is incredibly, incredibly complicated. I've been in this space for 6 years. I learn 1 to 4 new things every day. I won't be considered an expert on one part of the insurance ecosystem until I've been in it for 20 years. And we have people on our team. The first person we hired, she just eclipsed 40 years of being in the insurance space. And so it isn't helpful to always believe that you're right or to try to bulldoze someone. It isn't helpful to not be curious or open-minded about what someone is saying to you. For us, I don't think it's helpful in life, that's just generally, but sometimes I think there's a perception with engineering, you're gonna go solve this problem and you're gonna know everything about it and you're gonna do it in a vacuum and it's gonna be this big beautiful thing, and it's actually no, we really have to be able to listen, be curious, be willing to be wrong, be willing to ask 100 stupid questions. And so we think about it a lot when we're hiring on our team, and then how do we continue to cultivate and nurture that for folks, because you think you know one thing one day and you learn from someone else that it's a completely different expression in a different part of the insurance industry. So I also think, in a world as we're going with ChatGPT and other things where some of these harder skills are going to be blended with other tooling, that's what's going to make us all successful, right? How do we listen? How do we show up? How do we check ourselves when we're scared? And we have that flight or fight response. I used to joke in my prior life, it's just we're all humans humaning. The person on the other side of the table is having probably a similar reaction to you, and the success or failure of the conversation is really all about how you both handle that, because hard conversations are scary. So we think about a lot from just respect for our customers, and emphasize that with our team, that curiosity.
So I have a team member in this room, and she's probably like, I can't believe they're going to let Brittany talk about this, because you're going to have to pull her off the stage with a cane. But I think that soft skills are more important than Salesforce skills. I know, I said it. So here we go. Look, I'm activated already. I'm moving. Okay, here we go. So at our company, we leverage an assessment called I Said This, You Heard That. And it is very based in communication and your temperament and the words that you default to saying and the words that you default to hearing. So we use this as a way internally to help get to know ourselves, as Stephanie said, but also we started using it with our clients so that we can know who is sitting across that computer screen from us, because we don't get a lot of data points on them as people. So this allows us to also create a diffusion when we get into those difficult conversations of, you know, you're being a little red right now, or I'm feeling in my yellow. Can we, you know, talk about this in a different way? And it gives a common language and a tool to identify without being like, Stephanie, you got your bossy Stephanie on right now, and I really would like a delegation Stephanie. Right? So that's my soapbox on that, but I think soft skills are, you aren't going to have a successful project if you're not able to communicate, whether it's about an intricate flow, an API, or normalizing the data.
We use a product called Cloverleaf, nothing to do with Salesforce, but Cloverleaf has been a really instrumental tool of just getting to know our teammates and understanding if internally, I mean, there's conflict. Conflict is part of, and it's growing, and it's not bad. Just how to navigate those conversations. I look at the Cloverleaf, I get the people I'm meeting with today, and just tips like, hey, remember, Sarah likes to be a little bossy, or Sarah has FOMO, and she likes to be, she's laughing over here, FOMO, and likes to be included. So different things about people's personality, and sorry, Sarah, on it that help us navigate it and just further understand.
Okay, so Jody, I'm just going to reiterate because I think those are 3 gems. Invest in your team, curiosity. I said this, you heard that. So for anybody taking notes, those are good ones. I have one more question here. Do you guys want me to go back to the audience? Is someone with a, oh, great. Let's go then.
Hi, my name's Gretchen. I'm out of Portland, Oregon, and just love the ecosystem, so travel to be part of this. My question for you is, do you have a resource, a book, a podcast, a movie, something that you love, that you'd love to share with us that we could benefit from as female leaders?
Where do I start and where do I stop? I'll start on this one. So I would say if you were to read one book this year, I would say it would be Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. Oh, look, everyone's like, of course it is. Thank you. Okay. If you haven't read it, pick it up. Female or not female, you should pick it up and you should read it. Even better yet, her audio version is amazing because she actually talks to you. She's like, hey, I know you're listening to this, so I'm going to say this one more time to really make sure you got this point. So that is my go-to book. The next book I will say is if you're sitting in this room asking why am I not getting promoted or why am I not going to that next level in my career, I would tell you to pick up the book called Don't Take Yes for an Answer. It's gonna be hard to read, but it's going to be very eye-opening when you go through it.
This one's hard. One book throughout my entire career, and it shows up in whether it's consulting or getting internal or even in sales roles, Referral Engine. I read it back in the 2000s. Really, it's elevated my career in a lot of different ways. The Referral Engine, it's really about creating that brand, and now some of the material is a little dated because it's from the 2000s, but apply it.
Was it about going door to door? Just want to clarify.
Hey now. We don't talk about that. I swear I do like her. I did invite her. But that one's one. I've used a lot of it over the years, just really building up our profile and our DNA as an organization, and that's been a part of it. And when I think about what was instrumental, it comes back to that book. So
I'm the worst at these because I don't read business books usually. But I'll give one that was recommended to me by an engineering leader, and it is older than the book that you recommended, I'm sure, by a bit, because I talk about mainframes. But it's called The Mythical Man Month. And I read that. So there's whole sections about optimizing systems that you will never see, unless you work in the insurance space, possibly. But it's a really, for me, it was really impactful. So I used to run business systems teams, and now I run product and engineering teams. And there is the idea that something can go faster, you guys all those projects do, if you just put more people on it. And that is the Mythical Man Month. And there was a book that was written about it, and it was fascinating to me when I was reading it to realize that someone who was primarily working on technology in the 70s and 80s experienced the exact same set of problems that I was experiencing. And so it was really important for me early in my career to, one, understand that this was not a new problem, and then two, to think about how you actually make that trade-off, especially with business partners who really naturally subscribe to that, right? What if we just added more? And it's a really great analysis of how to think about when that's appropriate and how not to, and how to advocate for it. So I'll throw that one in the mix.
Okay, so we have one more from the audience. Great.
And of course, Jody's book in the back, if anyone hasn't read that one.
Hi. I don't usually ask questions. So I'm a full-time working mom with a 2-year-old, and my husband's a stay-at-home dad. And our goal, like, at some point in life is to kind of like own a business or kind of do something in that realm and kind of be founders in a way of something exciting and new. And I was just wondering, how did you guys decide to take that jump as a mother and maybe like a family depending on you and taking that risk?
I'll start. So let's see. When we made the decision, I'm like, so I co-founded with my husband, and at the time, I was working at a job at Stripe, and he was working at a company called Zenefits, which is where the idea for our company came from, and he was miserable, and he was getting more and more miserable, and we had the idea, and by the grace of a few really wonderful folks at Zenefits, he'd built a sort of prototype of the idea of the company inside, and they'd given him the IP. And they said, you have to leave the company before you can sell it. So for us, we had the idea, we knew that one of us was gonna need to keep a full-time job, because neither of us wanted to move in with our parents because we were in our 30s. And so I decided to be the one who kept the full-time job. But really the breaking point was we knew we had an idea, we knew we could start tackling it, and we were just in a situation where, Niji would go to, my co-founder husband would go to work every day, and I was like, you hate this, like it's time, let's go do it. So what we did, at the point we had no baby, no mortgage, it was a simpler time. He quit, and we bootstrapped it, and he started by just testing the market from our kitchen. I kept my full-time job. I worked on the company nights and weekends from 2018 until May of 2020, at which point we had enough momentum to decide that we should go do it full-time. At that point we had a baby on the way and a mortgage. So I was the responsible adult who had no paycheck, no funding, a mortgage, a baby, had just moved states, and looked at my partner and said, weren't you supposed to get some paperwork signed so we could pay ourselves? And he smiled at me. So I say that only in the sense of I don't think there's ever a perfect time. And And there was definitely a moment when I was leaving Stripe where my team looked at me and they were like, are you out of your ever-loving mind? Like, you would have 4 months of leave, you'd have all of this healthcare, you'd have everything. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'm just not gonna get paid and like see how this goes. And so I like, if you wait for every single, for me at least, I think if you wait for every single variable to line up, there will always be a reason not to do it. For our family, it was, we looked at it as a window of time. Like, this is gonna be our moment, and not, you know, and it probably won't come again for a couple years or maybe ever. We had the right idea, we had the right setup where we could actually afford to go do it. And we both looked at each other and realized that if we failed in 2 years, we'd also be okay. We didn't go into it like thinking like, we actually thought it was gonna be much, much smaller than it is. And so we said, hey, if it fails, like, it's a failed startup on our resume. We work in the tech space, big deal. We'll go back and we'll make it work. So that was how our family looked at it, which was just like, there's an upside, but there's also a possibility this implodes terribly, and let's make sure we map that out, and if we're okay with that and we can make it work, let's do it. And that's our window. So we did.
Well, I was talked into doing this, believe it or not. So at my previous company, push came to shove. I was fighting an uphill battle and felt like I was losing every single day. So I finally looked and I said, well, there's two sides to this, and I can continue to think that I'm the failure in this situation, or I can look and say there's probably ownership on the other side of the table. So I said, if you want me out of this company, go ahead and fire me. By the end of the week, I was gone. Then I was gonna go work for another company. However, our current co-founder was like, nope, we can go do this on our own. I was like, are you sure? And we've been doing it with someone else's money for the last 5 years. Why don't we go do it with our money? So I got pushed into this. I'm thankful that I did, but I always like to share that story. And then we went to motion on my side with my family of setting ourselves up to live off my husband's income. So that for us looked at finding a great state like Arizona that's very cheap to live in comparison to where we are sitting today. And living a half mile from my parents. So when I started Platinum Cubed in July of 2019, was not pregnant yet, but found out I was pregnant in September, October that year. And so that was a huge deciding point to live very close to grandma and grandpa, to set ourselves up with a support system. So there wasn't the stress of childcare and, you know, it's $20 every 5 minutes you're late. I know most of us probably live and breathe that, but sometimes the kids sleep over when you're dealing with fires at work. And that is how we got started all those years back. We also bootstrapped. We're still bootstrapping to this day, and are setting ourselves up for potential sale in the next 3 years.
Similar. I was 9 months pregnant and was brought into.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I think there is not a perfect time is the short answer. The longer answer is I got pulled in and they looked at me and said, hey, I didn't consider you for the CEO position because you were pregnant. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, I knew that at that moment, but I also knew I had a little human that needed to come out of my belly in 5 days. So went and did that and started planning and started my company 8 weeks later. So an 8-week-old baby. I was forced. I did have, my husband was still working, so we had insurance. We had a paycheck coming in, but we did have a mortgage, and we'd luckily had some nest egg. We've bootstrapped from day one, so similarly, and it's a rough road. About 2 years in, my husband came home and he called me and he's like, so I lost my job today. And he's like petrified. And I'm like, that's excellent. And he's like, what? So I'm like, this is what I want to do. And I want to take this bigger and I believe in it and I want to go. And that was really our opportunity. He's been a stay-at-home dad since. We were doing the math and it's been 7 years now. He's really excellent at it. I am not. So he's very scheduled, and we, from that point on, I started hiring employees and growing, and it's been a journey ever since. So there isn't a great time. If it's your DNA, you just gotta go. And at some point, you'll know.
Okay, so I want to repeat, like bootstrap and support.
Yes. Support.
Lots of support. I sometimes share this anecdote. I'll say this on this. So because we co-founded together, and so we didn't have someone on the outside, You know that you can do that with your spouse if you would survive the following scenario. You have flown down to Southern California for your brother-in-law's 30th birthday, and you're walking on a beach one morning, and your spouse turns to you and says, "So, we figured out there was something wrong in the product, and we've been submitting way too many transactions to the States, and it's either going to cost us $40,000 or $250,000 to pay back our customers." We did not have $250,000 to pay back our customers. That would have bankrupted our family. And we went, okay, like, cool, let's go figure out how to solve this. And so I also share that, like, whether it's your spouse or your founder, founding alone is a very brave and challenging thing to do, very lonely.
So kudos to Stephanie, because she is a solo founder over there.
Yep. But I always caveat that, because you're going to have a moment where you're like, oh my, I think we maybe just deep sank my life, our company, our family, because we were, you're talking with your spouse, like our family. And if you feel like you could, keep walking down the beach and not murder each other at that point, you'll be great. You'll be fine. You'll figure out the moment.
Okay, I just want to check on time. Casey, are we good for more questions?
We have 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so what advice would you give to women aspiring to leadership roles or looking to take on more responsibility?
Support. Support both with your colleagues, be humble, and I think learning from at least my experiences, and I know these ladies well, we don't know it all. And being able to rely on that community to help you either asking questions or asking for help when it comes to daycare or even support internally on navigating situations. Like, really, that's been number one. And if I could go back and do anything different, is it wasn't arrogance, it was like being scared that someone would judge me because I didn't know the answer to something. And now I found a community of people that these two women are a part of, and there's a number of other women out there, and mentors and advocates and friends, and that they don't know the answers either. So being humble enough to ask the questions that people in your mind you think you should know the answers to.
I would say find the person or a few people that you trust to tell you the truth. Don't just accept the niceties that we all say to each other's faces, but find that person who will lovingly but clearly tell you there's spinach in your teeth, and then help you get it out.
My husband does that all the time.
There you go, you're winning.
Yeah, support. I mean, I would echo support. I thought about this a lot earlier in my career. I worked for my whole career in very male-dominated spaces. Particularly, she's not technical enough. This doesn't qualify. This, that, or the other. And one thing that was helpful for me early on was actually in my companies. I was at larger scale companies, finding women in departments completely unrelated to mine, who I could talk to, who actually shared similar experiences, but we could talk to each other very honestly and directly because we didn't have to worry about stomping each other's toes at work. And that was really important for me early in my career, to get a perspective of like, this isn't just happening to me, and this is like a thing that's hard to be a woman in a male-dominated space. And that doesn't mean that everyone around you is like intending to do the thing. Sometimes it seems whatever, well-intentioned, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'm gonna like figure out how to deal with that one. So I think about a lot of, there is a superpower to being open and curious and a bit more vulnerable. And it can scare the shit out of people, and it can make you incredibly, incredibly productive in your job. I think that that's something we don't talk about. Like, I tend to talk about, and it's on me too, of like how hard it can be as a woman in those spaces. But there is a massive, I think everyone should know, like coming into a room, whether you're a woman or someone who has a background that's different with a different perspective, a willingness to not ride along with the room, to open up the conversation and open up the space is really, really powerful. And so if you're going and thinking about entering a room where you might not feel like you fit, lean into not fitting, because you'll learn a lot more. And sometimes it'll mean that you're like, oh, I don't fit and I don't want to fit, and that's also a great thing. Then go find a room you want to fit in. But I think that's been one of the joys of my career over time, is getting comfortable with, and it was a privilege later on, getting comfortable with being the person who would ask the question a different way, would say it in a different way, would observe something differently. So I think finding your sponsors, the spinach and the teeth are great, and then also just starting to figure out how you get comfortable with the fact that there is actually a lot of value in being someone who's out of place, but it takes a little bit more work, but the reward for that can be really, really high in terms of who will come to you, what people will share with you, and the perspectives that you get to have.
I think one other piece in looking around this room, I'm thankful because there's allies, and we talk a lot about women and we're sitting up here, but actually in this room, there are a lot of male faces that I know throughout my journey that have believed in me and supported me in different ways, and that's a huge part of why I'm up here. So it's not just find those allies, as well as people that believe in you and will lift you up and advocate for you as well. So.
Okay. So 3 more minutes. So, I think I want to share something. I just want to share gratitude for the people who organized Mile Dream and for the Salesforce ecosystem in general, because I do feel like there's a lot of support in this environment. And I was here last year and I saw this panel, and I had a business for 10 years, and after this panel I had a chance to talk to Stephanie, and I decided to close my own business and join her firm, So I wanted to share that because I think we shouldn't be afraid of making changes and look at things and what is working, what's not working. And also in name of this is a difficult word for me to say, camaraderie? Camaraderie, okay. That exists, and how these women are supportive of each other. So that being said, we have a couple of minutes left. Any last sharing thoughts that you have for our group here today?
Let's go first. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Find your support system, and depending on what your journey is, just go. And as Liddy kind of talked about, don't be afraid of change. Sometimes that's pivoting a full 180 and going a different direction. Sometimes that's going even faster in the direction you're going. So believe in yourself and find great people.
Find great people.
Yep.
Just find great people.
I'll echo, I'll spin it. Find your tribe that you want to fit in with, because I think that's important, that you could make yourself probably fit in a lot of different places, but find that DNA of the company, of the group, of the whatever you want to call, that you want to fit in with and you want to go to that next level with.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.